I don't necessarily want it to sound good. I just want it to sound cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the difference between the Beatles records and the Rolling Stones records.
Right.
You know, it's like the Rolling Stones records sound kind of badass and they sound weird and fun. And the Beatles records, same thing, but they also sound like flawless because that's kind of the bar, I suppose.
Welcome to Gear Club!
Hey everyone. In this episode, John, Stewart, and myself sit down with Tad Kubler, best known as guitarist and songwriter for the best bar band in the world, the Hold Steady. John and I have both made records with the band, and it was awesome to catch up with Tad about gear, guitars, and all things Hold Steady. We also got into Tad's production and engineering work, his burgeoning home studio, and his writing and demoing process. It's a great interview. We hope you enjoy, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out, and we appreciate you taking the time. Okay, with that out of the way, here's our interview with Tad Kubler.
I feel bad because I think you got me at a time in my life when I was probably the most difficult to manage. I think about it frequently.
Wait, but how is that
made for good art, though?
How is that unlike the rest of the guys in the band at the time?
Well, listen, I can't speak for anybody else, but I can say for me, like
Do you
now.
remember Bobby car surfing? Coming back
didn't
from
I send you that
DC's?
picture of you?
Were you there when that happened?
I was not, but
He was running over the cars.
Oh, maybe I was.
On Madison Street.
Yeah, okay,
heading
I
back
was.
to the
Yeah, no, I remember.
And he fell.
And he fell.
Oh shit,
off the
he
roof
missed
of another
the trunk.
car.
And literally fell, and we had to carry him back to the fucking studio.
And a real good thing for your drummer to do in the middle of a record is break his
and
leg.
I gotta say, we had fun.
Yes.
It was amazing. And I was, I saw Heidi Vanderlee last year.
I talked to her pretty frequently. Didn't you record her band?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Mikey's going to play drums on some of this stuff I've been doing.
Mikey Earp?
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
He just had a
He's
kid.
Great,
Yes,
man.
I know. I just saw him at the Dillinger Force show like a couple of months ago. He's got an amazing Vista Light kit. Have you seen that?
Whoa.
We used the Kaleidoscope kit, in Union City.
But you like the way the Vista Light kit sounds?
I like the way acrylic drums record.
Yeah?
I don't know if it's because the edges don't dull or if they just. But I've also, especially I feel like when you first start getting into audio stuff or you get into gear, it's very easy to kind of fetishize how what was used, and especially you start talking to somebody about the Beatles, heaven forbid, and it's just do it at home with a moist towel. I don't need to hear about this. But you realize they didn't
pertain to a lot of different things.
I thought he was talking
we got a name for the episode at
I
least.
thought he was talking about the drums.
No, but I don't the U-47 sounds awesome and it's always going to sound awesome and it's going to sound awesome and I guess what I've been trying to do now that I know a little bit more, but it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect where you kind of think it's like, But I don't necessarily want it to sound good. I just want it to sound cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the difference between the Beatles records and the Rolling Stones records.
Right.
It's like the Rolling Stones records sound kind of badass and they sound weird and fun. And the Beatles records, same thing, but they also sound like flawless because that's kind of the bar, I suppose.
So you've got a full studio in your house at this point, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it's and anybody that's ever renovated a house knows that it's I'll be done in a year, maybe 8 months, and I'm going on 4.5. Yeah. And I wanted to wait to set everything up until I was totally done because it's dusty and there's, you got to move shit around everywhere. But I just finally I'm you know what, I want to be able to work and do stuff.
Is it a studio for you to do, or do you want to bring people? Or?
No, it's mostly just for
you.
Especially now while there's still construction going on. It's just a place that I can work, and we've done some demos up there, the Hold Steady, and I've mixed some stuff there. But for the most part, it's for me. I think when I'm finally done with the house, and then I'm I've got a detached garage. It's a 3-car garage with a upstairs, and I'm turning one of the bays and the upstairs into a little 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh, wow.
So,
great.
if somebody Josh Kaufman called and was hey, we need to do 3 or 4 days of overdubs and vocals. It'd be sweet, come up.
Yeah.
There's a place for people to stay. And, we've done 3 records, the most recent 3 albums with him. and like the pre-production part is the most fun because I can slide into modern rock real quick if I'm not careful. Not that there's anything.
Define modern rock as a guitarist.
Oh, now I wouldn't. I don't think it even exists. But like, I don't know, Foo Fighters. And not that I love the Foo Fighters, but that's not what the Hold Steady sounds like. And if I'm starting to come up with parts, that's a very comfortable area for me.
Right.
And Josh is great at pulling that out. Just a little. But he, aside from being a great guitar player and a great musician, he comes from a very different, not background, but sort of aesthetic, I guess, than maybe I do.
So he's done the last 3 records.
Yeah, Dan Goodwin engineered. I think we did the first one at Dan's old place that was in Woodstock. It was in an old house. I know a bunch of people have recorded. Titus Andronicus recorded some stuff there. I think Craig did a solo record there, maybe. And then post-pandemic, he let go of the house, and we did him at the is it the Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Clubhouse, yeah.
Yeah, in Rhinebeck, which is a nice place, especially for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everybody can kind of get away from the city for a while, and we could stay there, and it's a nice place to set up camp, and there's
So you live there? You live on premises or no? You have the Airbnb?
When we did the records, we stayed in the house, and I think there's like exactly 6 bedrooms, which kind of works out well. It feels massive, even compared to like Water or just because the building is so big. It seems like there aren't a lot of studios like that anymore.
No.
That's why when I walked in here, I was so kind of ecstatic about like, this place is awesome. Like, you just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know that you kind of go where you need to.
A lot, yeah. I mean, but also now we moved to Raleigh about 6.5 years ago. So there's a couple of really good key places down there. But 2 of them are kind of residential, Fallen Trees in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and Mitch Easter's place, Fidelatorium.
Okay.
And his place is great, and he's great to be hanging around with.
He did all the REM, or a lot of the first REM records.
early REM records.
And
then there's the one other place I'll say down there is Dark Pines, which is 40 minutes away in Graham, and that's a really cool old barn. And the guy Max just opens the door for you. You walk in, you just start working, and it's like totally cool.
Everything's set up.
Everything's set up.
Nice.
It's great. Yeah, it's a really cool room. I'll be going back there soon.
Okay.
But
is Dreamland still open?
yeah,
Okay.
Dreamland's open. Yeah, Jerry Murata, the famous drummer,
Yeah.
runs it. I was actually telling these guys I was up there maybe 4 or 5 months ago with our mutual friend Sam Cogan. And it's really great.
Okay.
It's like,
I mean, that's a great vibe too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
it's a
it's
cool
great.
place and it's a cool area, and
the room sounds incredible. And it's just, like I said, fond memories. Dinosaur Jr., you guys.
Yeah.
You came to visit.
yes.
But no, it's really, it's Kim Deal torturing me.
Do you guys usually pick where you want to work, or do you let a producer do it?
I mean, whoever we're working with, I think will dictate it usually. But I mean, and sometimes it's a conversation in terms of how do you want to approach this? Do you want to have everybody there all the time, or do we want somewhere, like we could go somewhere smaller, but with 6 guys in the band, and then plus producer, engineer, assist. It gets to be a lot of people. That's a lot of kind of dude stew, and like so it's really
Pretty good.
yeah.
Gotta remember that
But if we're like when we did
It's my nickname.
I was just gonna say no.
Dude.
My new nickname.
But it depends. Or like at times we'll kind of do basics somewhere like that that's bigger, and then go somewhere else that's small. Like do you know Alex used to have Headgear with Dave?
Yeah, I just talked to him on the phone last week.
Oh, okay. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Like in fact, I was at Russell Street for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
And I feel like I'm interviewing you guys. my next question is,
How long was I at?
yeah,
Russell
no,
Street?
really like Russell Street is and I know it's like a smaller project, whatever you want to call it, but it's a room that looking at it and on paper should not sound good, and it sounds fucking great. Like drums sound great in there, piano sounds great in there. Do you guys work at places? I mean, and I know you guys have your own kind of home base, but where you walk in and you're like, oh shit, and it ends up sounding great.
Yes.
And you're kind of surprised.
Yes.
Yeah, like
That's a lesson learned
Right.
years ago that
it doesn't have to be.
I think if you walk in with a good song, it usually.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, a massive part of it.
Do you guys write in the studio, or do you always write beforehand?
Well, up until kind of just as recently as I think about 6 weeks ago, you know, because we're kind of spread out now too. Like I'm in Sullivan County, and Franz is in Tivoli, Craig's in the city, Bobby's in like Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, which is only about 40. So Steve is in Memphis. You know, we usually like put little demos or ideas in like a Dropbox folder, and then Craig will start to go through them and kind of see what he's inspired by, or, you know, sort of catches his ear, or something that he really likes.
Was that always the way you guys wrote?
No, I mean, I feel like the first few records, like particularly too the ones that we were doing with John, a lot of times it would be Bobby and I drinking beer and playing music, and sometimes more of one than the other, and just kind of hanging out, and that's how ideas would come up. And then that's when we still spend a lot of time in a rehearsal space, which we don't have anymore. So, and with everybody spread out, now it's that way a lot. But we're trying to get back to. I mean, we're kind of coming up on record number 10, which like just to say that blows my mind. I know it's ridiculous. Kind of like, what happened? But I think having it be, I don't know, record number 10, we're probably putting a lot of undue pressure on ourselves to try to do. It seems like it needs to be, I don't know, different, or maybe it doesn't, but we started a little more, like when I demo something, I'll really demo the shit out of it. Like I'll do it at a couple different tempos and a couple different feels, and then I feel like I have to put bass and drums, and one, just because it's fun, and I'm always looking for an excuse to play drums.
And you're playing drums?
Yeah, on the demos, yeah. Right. But I'll just do that so I can, because the more I feel like the more you work on the song, the more it becomes obvious, or where it needs to go, or what it should be, or what it wants to do. And then a lot of times, once I have it to a place that I'm like, okay, this is coming together, I'll either strip as much off of it as I can, like literally just go through and mute stuff, to try to keep it really simple. Like I think on our fifth record, sixth record, on that record, I think one of the biggest problems we ran into, because it was the first record Steve did done with us, so now there's an additional guitar player. We did it without. Franz had just left. I think Dan Newstead played piano on a couple of songs, but he wasn't writing with us. But it was basically Steve and I and Bobby and Galen were kind of writing the music for that. And, you know, Steve and I are kind of like letting a wild animal kind of go in a room and shutting the door, and they'll kind of find every nook and cranny and, you know, kind of pee in there if you let them. and you know, we'd done that, and with Craig not being with us, we'll take up as much space as allowed, you know. And so by the time Craig heard the songs, there wasn't a lot of room for vocals anymore. And I think that was sort of the drawback, or the sort of mistake we made, or because I think some of the songs are great. Like there's a handful of songs on that record that when I hear, I'm like, I probably won't write a better song than that. Right. But I think I think it sort of maligned for a bunch of different reasons. But I still like that record. Coincidentally, it's the only record that we mixed on an SSL, and now I can really hear it.
Oh,
I
wow,
don't think I could
interesting.
at the time, and now I'm
Yeah.
like total like that kind of high mid range.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
all
yeah,
over
yeah,
it. I'm like,
yeah.
oh shit.
Do you try to work out all your parts before the record, or do you experiment in the studio?
No, I mean, like, and honestly, this is kind of probably a larger conversation. With having Steve in the band, like Steve is a lead guitar player. He is a lead, like without question. I am definitely not. I can fake.
I would
can
totally disagree. But
well, thank you very
go
much.
ahead.
But I just
ahead.
kind of. I'm just like, well, let's take a run at it.
Who played all the hot riffs before Steve joined the
Right,
band?
That's what I'm saying.
No, well,
That's what I'm saying.
Craig.
No.
No. The funny thing is, playing in Lifter Puller with Craig before the Hold Steady.
Yeah, I
where
love Lifter Puller.
I think I played bass in that, which was awesome, and I kind of miss playing bass when I think about it too. But like consistently, Craig's a really kind of fascinating guitar player. He tunes weird. It's like the drop D on both the E's.
Oh,
So he can kind of bar stuff.
interesting.
And
Oh, wow.
I think when the Hold Steady started, and I started playing guitar, I think Craig just kind of stopped worrying about playing guitar at all because he didn't necessarily have to. And then when Steve joined the band, like Steve has most of his parts worked out, and like the solos, I just kind of crash into the side of the mountain. It's like, all right, let's just go at it until we got to bail out. Yeah. Where Steve will come in and it's incredibly melodic. And you were talking to Frampton, and you were saying how he plays guitar a lot like he sings.
Yeah.
Steve is the exact same way. That's what first thing I thought of when I heard that.
You forgot all the words?
Frampton forgets the words, yes.
It's really a beautiful record. The thing that really struck me about it is as I was listening to it, I'm thinking, who does this sound like? And it occurred to me that your guitar playing sounds like you're singing. and I really kind of felt like this is sort of a lesson in melody, right? Like the whole record is about melody. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an exquisite record because it really, to me, sounded like I knew it was you. Besides your guitar playing, it sounded like you're vocalizing, which it just makes so much sense that it would be so connected.
Oh, well, thank you.
But for the last few records, we do a little bit of pre-production, but not much. So by the time, when we get into the studio, a lot of times people are still learning the songs,
Right. Yeah.
which in a way is kind of cool because you get to hear that sense of discovery.
Yeah.
Occasionally there'll be one of those moments that's really great. And I think it's also good because you don't get to, like you can kind of get demo-itis a little bit.
Oh,
You
yeah.
get used to hearing something like that, and then you can't let it go. And it's like, oh God.
What do you do about like when you do tempos? What about when do you have Craig's vocal in your mind or the melody when you're doing these basic tracks, or you just get it feeling good for you, and then Craig just fits it into the tempo?
Yeah, or if it's, and also like I think having made 12 records with him, and we've been doing this for about 26 or 7 years, knowing especially how kind of polarizing his vocal style is and how really his own it is. I also have a pretty good idea
of where it's going to sit.
Yeah, and how how dense it's going to be. Right. We're reissuing the second record, Separation Sunday, and when we were doing the artwork for that, I think I saw like a Rocket from the Crypt record or a Drive Like Jehu record where they had written everything out, and it's just in handwriting and it looks kind of scrawled, and I'm like, that's awesome, let's do that. And I had to write out the lyrics, and I'm like, I will fucking never do this again because it took me like 3 days to do. Yeah, it was pretty harrowing.
Are you inspired by your instruments?
Oh, absolutely.
You pick up a certain thing for a certain. Are you constantly changing stuff, or you have go-to things that you?
I mean, I've got a couple of main setups are like for guitars. I've got it's probably a mid or early 90s, or maybe it's even early aughts, early 2000s. I hate the aughts. I don't know why I would say that. But it's a 345 that I got from Gibson. It was a repair. I think they had, like, somebody else was using it, maybe for like a TV show or something like that. And I went into the showroom and I saw it, and it had just been repaired. That it had a crack in the headstock, and I took that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to borrow this one. That was, at least 15 years ago. Yeah, so, nice, but it's kind of become my main guitar.
Yeah, cool.
And because I think like the 335s, 345s, they can do a lot of different things.
Pardon my ignorance, but what's the difference between a 335 and a 345?
10, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So 335, 345, and the 355 are all the same shape. The 355 has
stereo.
The 345 is the stereo.
The 345 stereo.
Oh.
Right.
And mine was originally it was a stereo. It's got the two. I had to put gaff tape over one because I kept plugging into the wrong
one. Right.
And Dusty had to. Those things are impossible to work on because they don't have a back plate, so you have to get your hands inside them to rewire them.
Oh.
It was. I've never seen anybody sweat so much in my life.
Yeah,
yeah. But and then the 355 has block inlays and the double binding all the way around it, and it's got the Gibson logo on the top is like the Les Paul custom one.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what they call that. See, this is thank God this is not a guitar podcast. You guys would get a lot of comments.
They're all semi-hollow though. They all have a block
They're
down
all the same setup.
Shape.
Yeah, same shape and set up that way. It's just cosmetic differences, really.
Okay.
And I have I think it's a Mexican Telecaster that I got for
Nice. Those are
$300
great.
that I
Those are
used
great.
almost exclusively on the last record. It's got a bullet hole in it now.
Really?
But yeah.
That's,
That's geez, that's scary. No, we were
Were
bored.
you shot at or were you shooting out? Well,
A little bit of each. I was returning fire. No, we were bored at the studio, actually. Like I said, the clubhouse studio, it's like kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, wait, I think I have something in my car. And there have to be different pickups in it because it doesn't sound like any Telecaster I've ever heard before. It's not like super hot like DiMarzio's Super Distortion, but it definitely growls a little bit more than like a regular it doesn't sound quite as thin.
cool.
But with I guess now in terms of like gear inspiring songs, it's almost become a little bit more of that with pedals.
Oh, interesting.
I got into the pedal game pretty late.
yeah.
And now I've kind of been totally swept away, and I'm always like, oh, I need one of these. Like I think I have 3 or 4 different tremolo pedals on my board, like
On one board.
yeah, like the board,
And you use them simultaneously.
yeah,
Or in conjonction with...
or different speed settings, especially because I don't want to
You don't
have
want
to
to go down.
like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah.
But there's this kid out of this is kind of a long story long. A friend of mine, my friend Trish, got me a pedal for my 50th birthday, and it's like an oil can delay type of thing. And I guess she called a couple of different pedal companies to try to get it made because it's literally, I had this on. It's a picture of me with a headlamp on the pedal, and when you turn it on, the headlamp lights up.
Wow.
Oh
Fantastic.
my God,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
So she found this
Fantastic.
kid in the Midwest, Sketchy Sounds, who's making pedals, and had him do it. It turns out he's from Janesville, which is where I grew up.
wow.
It's literally
Cool.
like 30 minutes
Yeah.
from Madison, Wisconsin.
Wow.
And then she gave it to me end of June when we were playing in Chicago, and then right after that show, I ended up driving out to South Dakota to see my dad, my brother, and I stopped in Janesville because it's about halfway. I stayed the night, and I was with my friend from high school, and he's like, there's this band playing at the VFW or whatever you want. So we went to see him, and it's this kid's band.
Oh, great.
And so he's like, yeah, this guy makes pedals. And I'm like, what's the name of his company? I think I just got one of these. So I got, but
Oh, very cool.
yeah, I ended up, on the way back, I actually took an extra day to stop at his house. And I don't know if you guys have ever even seen any of these pedals, because they're not, he doesn't do anything super crazy, but all the stuff that he does is really kind of great. Like he makes a kind of a version of the OCD, the full tone OCD,
Yeah,
but it's two pedals in one. So you actually have two OCDs, like, so you can set one up as kind of just a little bit of gain, kind of barely goose it, and then you can really set one up so it kind of goes nuts, which is a good idea. But it's all sort of takes on stuff like that.
How big is your pedal board?
I don't know, like, this is
that's
great
like
audio.
so that's like 2 feet wide by 16 inches deep.
Yeah, it's actually smaller than it, because for a long time I had Bob Bradshaw made me a board, and when we were touring a lot in a van, a bus, whatever like that, it was just great to have because it was bulletproof.
Yeah.
And it always worked, and if something went wrong, you knew exactly what it was. And I still have it, but I don't, now that we kind of fly everywhere, it's not a situation where now I've just been kind of putting them together myself, which is in a way a little more fun because you kind of get to tinker and whatnot, but what I've been doing is like go into it, there's a, like, I think the tuner first or whatever, and then gain stuff. But then after the gain stage, I'll send it into an ABY, and I'll split the signal, and then because I always use 2 amps, like 2 smaller wattage amps, like an AC-15, and because we're backlining stuff all the time, like one of those Blues Customs, the 10-inch thing, they're louder than hell, but they sound pretty good, especially if you've got a halfway decent pedal in front of it or something like that. But I'll split the signal after the gain stage, and like there'll be basically an A channel that goes to like a chorus, a tremolo or 2, flanger, vibrato, delay, maybe a reverb, something, and then something kind of crazy, and then the B section will kind of go to a similar variety of pedals that are set up a little different, and then I do like a stereo out into each amp. It's not there's nothing I think that I do like tech-wise that is a necessity. It's all just like, ooh, this will be neat.
Yeah.
Sure. So
It keeps it fun.
yeah. It keeps you engaged, kind of like.
Yeah.
But sorry, and back to your question. Was it Neil Young that said there's only a certain amount of songs that sort of live in each guitar? Or
Oh no, I don't never heard that.
okay, I think I'm
nice.
pretty sure it was Neil Young, but I kind of feel that way a little bit. Like, and anytime you get something new or different, it's like, I mean, how often do you get a new piece of gear for the studio and you're like, this is like gated reverb, like, all the drums, great.
Yeah.
No, but
Well, I'm a little like that with guitar pedals now because so many people I know are making them, and I always run them back into Pro Tools and stuff like that. But I mean, for a guy who doesn't play guitar, I have a lot of fucking guitar pedals.
that's what I noticed. Like when we first started working with you, was that there's always, and they're not on guitar.
No,
Yeah,
they're
they're
on
on
anything.
Yeah, they're on the snare, or they're on like.
Yeah.
And looking at the gear in here, do you still use a lot of like outboard stuff while you're tracking?
While we're tracking, yes.
Okay, for what? And or like okay, maybe like a compressor on vocals or guitars.
Yeah, we'll track with that.
Okay.
Tracking, it's nice to kind of go for it and try to get a vibe with it. And
Yeah.
I mean, when you're listening, if you're tracking, you're on headphones, and the compression is really just right for you, it's very inspiring.
Yes.
It's subtle, but it's
Yeah.
very inspiring. And, so even if you're just monitoring and not printing it, but in terms of mixing, like we don't, I mean,
I'm in the all
we
in the
very,
box.
Okay.
because
I'm all in
the
box.
recall thing is
Yeah.
kind of a little
Yeah,
too.
we talked about that. Yeah.
Pre-Pro Tools, how if they're like, you know what, we need you to redo this. You're gonna. How long would it take
One
to
of the
set up a
worst,
recall?
one of the worst phone
Hours.
calls you can possibly get
Yeah.
is someone saying, "Oh, by the way, these hi-hats a little loud."
Yeah.
That's like that's one of the worst phone calls to get is because you couldn't, now it's sure, bring it on.
yeah.
Trying to match something
Yeah.
in analog is impossible. I mean, the humidity and temperature changes.
Yeah, that's right.
it's gonna
There's so
sound
many different variables that
Yeah.
can make it like.
Yeah.
Or somebody like notices that the knob on a pot is like not quite right, so they readjust it and make it perfect, and now your recall is off.
Same thing with the 33609, the Neve, except every now and then you'll have a knob that's offset.
Yeah, that's right.
So even though it's 3 clicks up, it's on 6 as opposed to 4 or whatever the
Right.
fuck it is.
Yeah.
That's happened to me a couple of times. It's
Well, that's why all the mastering stuff,
Yeah.
most mastering gear is on switches or detinted pots,
Okay.
so that you don't have to,
Right.
because you're always recalling if analog mastering, you
Yeah.
gotta recall. That's all. Yeah.
No guesswork. Like, what are some of the plugins, or is there a particular plugin wouldn't be able to live without?
Eventide.
Yeah.
Black Hole.
Black Hole is pretty great.
Pretty great.
They have a split EQ, which I use all the time to fix things from like outside people give me stuff and the bass drum's got issues. Yeah. Split EQ is useful. And the Omnipressor plugin, I love.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
But I love it for parallel compression on the snare. Like I really I can get
gotta
that
try
to
that.
spank. Yeah,
That's
try it.
really
It's really
Well,
great.
and I realize sometimes too, depending on, if I had the actual analog version, I don't know that would do it because it's on almost every drum channel that I have.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, oh shit, I could have.
Mitch Easter is obsessed with the Omnipressor.
It is so.
He loves it.
pretty
So
amazing.
There
he
isn't
is-
there isn't another piece of gear that does what that does.
Yes,
No,
that's
like-
that's very true.
Honestly, there's another Crush Station is
Yeah,
another
I
one that
love
I
Crush
use
Station.
all the time.
Boy,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
octave
Yep.
generator on that
Yep.
is phenomenal for
Yeah.
all sorts of shit you wouldn't think.
Yeah,
It's
no,
good on
yeah,
the bus, too.
You've put it on the bus.
yeah.
Really?
Come
A
on.
little bit of dirt on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Dig it.
It's there's stuff. I mean, I hear people say this a lot. It's very musical. I don't. I mean, isn't it all? Isn't that what we're
kinda all
talking about?
musical,
You know, like come on. But no, it is.
What's
it's
the opposite of
It's not musical.
Yeah, it's
love it,
this
but
is
it's
not.
not
This is
even a word.
This is not musical.
I wish it would be a little less musical.
It's a letter.
Well, that's
Next time I hear something I
Fatty.
don't like, I'm just like, that's not music.
That's not music.
No, I don't think so. And then I can't remember the name with all the colored knobs on it.
Well, the
GML.
top one is a ADR Compex. And
That's
then the bottom one
that's
is
the other great drum.
GML.
That's
That is
the other
great.
Oh, yeah.
drum compressor.
We track with
Yeah,
that.
it's,
Okay.
I track. Yeah, room mics are
Which
going through
Compex
that
is
most
it?
of the time.
The regular compass.
The yeah
Okay.
I only have 7 of them.
760.
Do you really?
I have a lot of them.
Please let me know if you want to sell one.
I do want to sell one.
Okay, yeah, you got to buy it right here.
Okay,
right
we'll
here.
talk about it.
You heard it here first. But don't you feel also, and Pat Kaufman over at, he's in the main drag space. He's got his own amp. He repairs amp. Like that's one thing. Guitars are, I wouldn't say less important to me, but I am still kind of a nut about amps, though everything's gotten smaller. You know, like I used to have a 100-watt Park head that I actually sold to Aquaman. God, what is his name?
Aquaman. Jason Momoa?
Yes, he bought it. Yeah, super awesome dude. Actually, really nice
Does
guy.
he want a Compex?
He might. He's got my old Park.
He could probably break a Compex in half.
Yes. But I was talking to Pat about this. Like, it doesn't seem like there is that next generation of amp guys or repair
I don't know,
guys.
yeah. I haven't thought
like-
about that shit.
Like it's really. I've got one of those Chandler TG EMI, like just single rack space preamps, and it's kind of the phantom power on it is a little like clicky and it buzzes a little bit. Like it needs some attention, and I can't find anybody to take it to.
Not to toot my own horn.
Yeah,
but I'm your tech guy.
Yeah, he's
Are
the
you
guy.
really?
Yeah, he's the
Yeah,
guy.
I do all of that
Shit,
stuff.
I've also got an Alltech is it M9 or the Coke bottle mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like it's starting to buzz and.
No, I do all that stuff, dude.
Oh, you're kidding me!
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Do you do
This is the
tube
best
mics?
day ever.
I do everything. Tube mics,
Okay.
tube mics, tape machines, consoles.
Okay, great.
Anything.
Are you looking for microphones?
Always, yes.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm also like, I only have a couple of microphones that I've spent a ton of money on,
Yeah.
or I shouldn't say a ton, that I've spent money on. I more often than not end up buying just something that like, oh, that looks cool,
Right.
and see what it does, and it's kind of weird.
Right on.
But I feel like some of the copies are, they might sound cool, but that's not what that is at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And the microphones you're looking for are for acoustic guitar amp, or vocals, or
Vocals and drums,
Right.
or ideally that I can use for a lot of different things. That
versatile mic.
yeah.
Sennheiser 604s. That's the mic that Mitch Easter told me about that we put on the
Cool.
bass drum.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went home and I bought 3 of them for, I think it was $180.
Amazing. It's a dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
You know? Yeah.
Well, and the thing about a lot of those old microphones, people can cop a circuit, but like I don't think people know, like we don't know what a U47 brand new sounded like. I
Yeah.
mean, you hear a U47 today, it can sound really great, but it's had cigarette smoke blown into it for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And the tube is 60 years old and the resistors have all changed value, and that can be awesome or that can suck.
Yeah.
And so copying it is like, of course, it's not going to sound the same. It's
Right.
going to sound like something totally different.
Yeah, and even the ones that are supposed to resemble a U87 don't sound like a U87 at all. And then there's some that can get pretty close, and I don't. I mean,
That's the thing I'm always worried about with the remakes or the, you know.
yeah, like, and you just, and I don't know enough about electronics and circuits and stuff like that to know
Yeah.
the whys and the hows of how it happens, other than, Kevin Agunis. He had Fairfax recordings, and it was in an old soundstage, and he has 2 of the old Abbey Road boards. Do you know who I'm talking about? This guy?
No,
Okay.
no.
I mean, his place was like a museum, and it was unbelievable. But he's like, oh, I have a 59. We had to do something there. We got asked to do a soundtrack thing, and we were on tour, and we had like a day off, and it worked perfectly. And like, okay, we can go in here and record. But he had a 59 Les Paul. I'm like, yeah, because all of our gear was going to San Diego, so we had to use whatever was there. And he like pulled it out of a safe or something like that, and it looked brand new. And I knew as soon as he showed, I'm like, I don't want to play this, because obviously nobody has wanted to play this, so it's going to be garbage. And it was terrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was like, and I'm sure he paid a lot of money for it. And it's just like, whew. That's the other thing about going to a studio, in terms of gear inspiring something or other. I feel like the more opportunities we've had to go and record different places or whatever, I'll typically try to bring as little as possible and use whatever is there, because it's usually there's always something cool
expands
about
your palette.
it.
Yeah.
Like a weird Burns 12 string, or
right.
and then you're like, oh yeah, hey, I wonder what I can do with this.
Right.
Like it's kind of a I don't know, it's a little hippified in the approach, but it always works out.
Yeah.
I feel like the more options you have, the more kind of mired you get with, like,
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I like about electrical audio in Chicago. You know, rest in peace, Steve Albini. But he has a huge collection. The studio has a huge collection of really cool ribbon mics.
Yeah.
You know, all kinds of weird, obscure ribbon mics. And, you know, you grab a couple, put them up for room mics, and it's like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just so fun to do something like that. So,
which room did you record in there?
I've done both.
Okay.
I've done A and B.
Yeah.
They're both really great rooms.
Yeah, the staircase to the B room is
The B thing. That's a wacky one. But,
fantastic place.
Yeah, because you're above the actual recording. It's down there.
Yeah.
And there are 2 rooms.
The
There's
control room's above.
So the outside big room is great, and then there's glass doors, and then you go in, and it's like another big area.
Right.
So, yeah, that place is great.
So when you are miking up drums, other than, why do you always want to use dynamic mics and not like large diaphragm mics? Just bleed?
I don't think that's necessarily. I mean, 87 sound fucking awesome on toms.
Yeah.
Okay.
I use a KM84 on my snare drum pretty
too.
much exclusively at this point. I don't even
Okay.
put a 57 on it anymore.
Yeah.
For anything.
And you have, you put the pad on it, right?
I do with a pad and then a pad on the preamp. I mean, it's
exactly.
screaming, but it sounds great.
Because that's why I tried KM184s without the pads on them, and they overload.
Right.
You can't use those.
But the drummer is critical to
So for
how
sure.
you might select. For me, anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, guys hit really hard. You might want to use a dynamic microphone. Guys who are more gentle, you can use ribbons and.
Yeah, for sure.
But like for me, drums, they're the mystery of recording.
Yeah.
But it, like the balance, I think we were talking about it before, like the hat balance against how hard they hit this against that is so like you can, that's why, great drummers, you can put very minimal microphones up and their internal balances. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one instrument, theoretically.
Yeah.
It's a drum kit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're right.
But that's why, once again, a guy like Mikey Erg, who we were talking about, he sits down, he hits great, and honestly, you put up whatever you want, and he's really good at tuning. Like, he nails it instantly. He hits really great. And honestly, like, you bring up your faders. Wow, it sounds there.
Right
okay, maybe I'll EQ a little bit of the snare, but it's not the kind of thing where you have to sit there and be like, I got to do this. It's just it's a pleasure working with him.
So, James, the amp thing that Eric had again,
The Kemper.
Kemper. Have you ever run by that stuff?
That's
I'm gonna get in trouble here, aren't I?
Go.
I totally understand, like the value and why they're awesome, and what even the use for them live, even especially almost more so than the studio, I guess, a little bit. The consistency and the reliability. I haven't messed around with one. I played through one, I think, when we were doing Teeth Dreams, would have been the 6th record, I think. And I was just kind of like, but I also own a 57 Champ, and I own a 57 Deluxe. Mm-hmm. And I've got an old, what was Magnetone before they were Magnetone? It's called something crazy. It's got like a car speaker in it. It looks insane. I'll think of the name of it. And I've got, an old Gretsch Playboy with the 10-inch speaker in it, which is like the best amp I've ever owned in my life.
But those are your studio amps. You don't bring them out with you.
No, I'll bring them out. I mean, why have them if you can't show them off?
Great.
I've toured with the 57 Deluxe, and people are like, dude, why do you have this on the road? And I'm like, why bother having it?
Right. No, that makes sense.
I mean, it's, I did take out the original speaker and put a replacement in there, so if I ever want to part with it or for whatever reason, I've got the original that's still in good shape.
Right.
But for the most part, like stuff like that.
But that's
I'll try
good
to be a little
that
proactive.
You take this stuff out that you like.
Or just make sure that one, I can return it to its kind of original glory whenever I want, but that I don't trash it somehow so it's irreparable or irreparable.
Irreparable.
Yeah, thank you. And
both.
Yeah, it depends on who's asking.
Welcome to Grammar Club.
Exactly.
To John, it's irreparable.
Yeah, grammar's not ridiculous. But no, I mean, I feel like that's the fun of kind of having some of that stuff, and that Champ is like, I kind of don't know
why. Is it
why.
a Tweed?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're both. Recording wise, I don't know why you'd need another amp.
Right.
Like if you're playing rock and roll, like high gain stuff like that, like
that's cool.
It sounds so good.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, the Deluxe, I would love to use that live more now, but it's too loud for me.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
It's just like because you really have to wind it up to kind of get it to sound how I want it to sound, anyways. But it's like it's I don't know how I used to use a 100-watt half stack,
Right.
really.
You were younger.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just punishing people, too,
Yeah,
you know, like ridiculous.
But it's ironic that like Dino still goes out and Jay still has those 6 Marshalls.
So,
And they're all
9
they're all
Marshalls.
hooked up.
Yes.
They're all hooked. Oh, I think there's 6 Marshalls, like a half circle, but then he's got
got the
Fender amp.
the super reverb pointed right at his head.
From the front of the stage, so he can get direct sound, and he's been doing this for years. And
He doesn't seem hard of hearing.
no,
Not at all. Like,
I mean,
I don't.
His mix comments to me are always like, "Holy shit, this guy can hear." You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like the craziest thing. But
When we played with them,
right.
when we did that show, you know, like in the Hold Steady now, I've gone from playing a 100-watt Park and a super reverb, both pretty wound out down to like an AC-15 and a Blues Junior that I'm always kind of like trying to creep them back down a little bit. And so, you know, and Craig and I are sound checking with Dinosaur, and they've got me through a 100-watt high watt, through a 412. I'm literally almost right on top of Craig. And, you know, and I've got it at about 3 or 4, and I'm just like, this thing is literally ripping holes in my ankles, you know, like, and we do the song, and I turn to Jay, and I'm like, how's that? Is that okay? Thinking like, am I fucking playing this right at all? Also, he's like, oh, you take the solo. I'm going to play sitar. And I'm just like, dude, don't put me through this, please, man. I'm like sweating, and I'm just like shaking. And I'm going to like play a Dinosaur Jr. song in front of Jay Mascis and burn his fucking solo in front of him? No way. And, but we finished the song, I'm like, is that okay? He's like, he just says, you could be louder. And I'm like, I just turned to Craig and I'm like, I don't ever want to hear another word about it. You know? But I think we went through it 3 times, and by the end of it, I was on 9.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't.
But
was
is
so
the
loud.
whole band's stage volume lower than it used to be? Like, have you all kind of brought it down a little?
Sometimes, but, and you know, like, I'm stage left, and I'm the only person over there, which seems silly to me.
Oh, so Steve is on Franz's side?
Yeah, so it's Franz and Steve and Galen are all on the same side.
And their amps are all over there?
It is volume wars over there. It's crazy. And, you know, the SVT, I think, is sometimes a difficult thing to deal with on stage, because if you're too close to it, you don't think it's very loud, and it is.
Right.
And so, depending on the size of the room and the size of the stage, if Galen is too close to it, then he's kind of creeping up.
Because the peak spot.
Yeah.
You
You have to be like 15 feet away from it, kind of, for it to really the wave to hit you.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of creep over there at some point during the show, and I get just a little bit past Bobby's kick drum, and I'm like, no fucking way. Like, it's so loud over there that it's punishing kind of sometimes. But yeah, for the most part, I would say everybody's gotten quieter.
How about Bobby?
A little bit. He's not using 2As anymore. I finally and I think it was a conversation that you had with me about just cymbals.
Right.
And in fact, like, now that I'm doing more and more recording, they're kind of the bane of my existence. I hate them. No more cymbals. No, just get rid of them. Because they just chew up great sounding drums. But he's using 5Bs now, I think. He's using lighter sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
But he's still,
He hits hard.
he's still Bob. Yeah, he's a pugilist for sure.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the paper towels in the hi-hat, inside the hi-hat, really help.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah,
Actually,
it really does help, because you can't. Some people you can't tell play lighter, because then they're thinking about that, and then they're not really thinking about their thing. You know?
Well, that's a thing in general too. Especially drums, like guitars, not so much, but gain-wise, you know, you can sit behind a kit and be playing and like, this sounds awesome. It's like, yeah, but it's not going to sound like that once you put a mic on it.
Yeah.
That's not what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And that was I think the other hard thing to learn was, and to say that I like know, when I learned how to record, it was still using tape. learn how to record might be a strong use of that, but just learn the process, I guess.
Yeah.
And when I started, I really, it took me a long time to even start to use Pro Tools. I resisted for thinking this is going to be in and out, and I don't need to know how to do this. And then I did, and my friend Joby from that band, The Bronx, he came over to my place and we were working on some music, and he kind of looked at my mix. He's like, "Whoa, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is," and I didn't. He's like, "You're not using. This is not sound anymore. This is data. Like, this is just information. You can't use compressors like you can if you're an analog. It doesn't. Like diming something out, it won't give you like kind of distortion like that. It just sounds shitty."
Yeah. Right.
And it took me a long time to kind of learn that, or to just rethink it that way. Which, and now how powerful plugins have got, or how useful, I guess. And I don't have a huge reference for it because I feel like they've always been, but now, like a lot of times I'll just put the Pultec EQ on it and I won't even touch it. I'll just put the plug-in on because it sounds different. Right. Like that seems nuts to me. Right.
They're really modeling what harmonically is going on, even with like input and output transformers and stuff.
I mean, I wish somebody was able to explain exactly how that's done. In a simple sort of way. Yeah. But
I do that with Devil Lock. Where where it can be set to 0-0, and if I want a background vocal to be a little more like gnarly, I'll just throw it on and not touch it. Okay. And it just gives it that just a little bit. Like it's not like I'm distorting it. It's not like I'm putting Decapitator on every track and kind of ultimately ruining the mix.
Why not?
Because I've literally had to remix people's records where my remix consisted of me taking Decapitator off of every track, and then it sounded like music.
So it's Decapitator.
Yeah, it's Decapitator.
So do you have a preference to writing, the road, or the studio?
The studio, for sure. I mean, not that I don't. Like, it took me when I stopped getting loaded, it took me a really long time to just even be comfortable playing live. Like, I'd never been on stage sober ever. And as I would say, as much as I enjoy it now, because there was a long period like I look stupid, and then you can get to a place too where you're comfortable again, but you're not engaged. You're like, did I leave the iron on? And you're like, oh my God, I'm on stage. Right. And now I think I enjoy it a lot more. But even with that, I like being in the studio because it's kind of where something becomes nothing, or nothing becomes something. Right.
Or something becomes nothing.
Like you just put Can I get some more Decapitator in my headphones, please? But that, you were mixing, you were doing some roughs from the day that we did, and I think I was like screwing around, and then Franz was screwing around, and you were like, stop, hold on. And you literally, we were sitting kind of like this, and you set up a couple of mics, and in 15 minutes we had a song.
Oh, right.
Wow. You remember that?
Yes, I do remember. Water Music.
Yep.
Yeah. What record was this?
It would have been. Boys and Girls.
It probably was Boys and Girls.
The song was
because you would have remembered it on. You worked on whatever.
I worked on Stay Positive.
Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't that. It was Boys and Girls.
Yeah. You Can Make Them Like You, I think was the name of the song.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that that literally came together like that. I should say too that after Franz split and came back, Franz and I are full on love affair again.
Great.
Yeah, it's I really, and I think I was talking before about Josh Kaufman, and Franz is similar in that he comes from a different aesthetic and a very strong one.
Yeah.
That's his own that I really appreciate here. And he, like Franz does really, in terms of planning all his parts out, he does a phenomenal job of that.
Yeah.
And I wish I don't know, I guess in some ways I wish I did that more, but also after making, a dozen or so records, I'm kind of like, I should just be okay with how I do it and
Yeah,
right
not
on.
try to
on.
But I was really glad when he came back because there was something really magical about you on that side of the stage, him on that side, and just the way all the energy happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also with his string arrangements and just he added a little a thing that obviously wasn't guitars. And the guitars are cool too, but it was nice to have that dichotomy.
Yeah, and I think initially too when we it's funny because we had to kind of talk him into joining the band. We're like, listen, it's not gonna be a huge commitment. It's not gonna take up a lot of your time.
Right.
Totally.
Wait,
like,
to rejoin?
No, this
To
was
join
when
the
he first
first-
joined.
gotcha.
When we first got him in the band, I remember thinking like, this will give us some legitimacy somehow because we'll have a piano player and like a real musician in the band that understands music. And
Dresses nice.
Yeah, he's got his own thing, and then
Drinks from a bottle of red wine.
Yes,
Which-
which there's a lot less of all around, which is kind of depressing. Like I don't, whether or not I'm getting loaded, I want everybody else to be getting loaded. At least,
No, that's a true gentleman right there.
Yeah. I try to bring that to everything, but he just, and I think since he came back, pianos can be, I think especially in our band, such a more dynamic instrument.
Yep.
We really missed. That's the one. I think the big thing that we missed on Teeth Dreams that we didn't. There was some piano here and there on that, but you just can't. You can't do it with guitar. Even if you're the quiet loud stuff is one thing, but the piano's a whole different ball game.
Do you get involved with lyrics?
No,
you just let Craig do it?
No.
Craig is-
No, that's also why would I need to?
Yeah.
Craig's thing is he's literally telling stories. Every song is a story. He's telling you, and it's his story.
It's funny because I was actually thinking about this when I was driving in here. I think I can count on one hand over 9 records now how many choruses we have, like actual where it's a refrain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Hood Rat is the only one that comes to mind, to be honest.
Massive Nights, maybe.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Actually, that's another
That
good
has the
one.
woes in it.
We had some massive nights. Every song was right. All I want is time. And your friends are pretty cool, and my friends are acting cool. There weren't any fights.
It's not that type of
Formulaic.
Yeah.
thing, right?
Though I will say, in doing demos recently, I would say out of, Franz's songs, Steve's songs, Craig's songs, my songs, I definitely stick to a pop format.
Right.
Like verse, the long verse, short chorus, short verse, long chorus, bridge, chorus out.
Right.
Like that. When I bring stuff in, it's typically in that format. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's good.
It seems like the best way to get the point across in a way. Yeah. And then when we start to work on it, it usually will get kind of weird, or we'll switch stuff up. And yeah, it's not in writing and bringing songs in. Whoever brings them in, it's depending on, I guess, what the vision is. But I'm pretty, and you might laugh at this because I never was, but now I'm almost overly diplomatic with. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, we can do. Like, if you think we should nix this, or we should have a different outro, or like I don't, what I know how I want to hear it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, gotcha.
Sure.
I get it.
And there have certainly been times when, the record comes out and I'm like, shit, I wish I would have kind of been a little more hard line on
we
that.
all-
But
right.
I think like once you've, once you've done a few records, I just look at it like, well, I'll then next, then we'll write another song, and that'll be that one. So.
Do you ever tweak? Do you ever tweak afterwards? Like tweak a song? You put it on a record. You end up tweaking it live.
Oh yeah, and there are songs that only kind of slightly resemble the recorded version now.
Oh, yeah.
Like Southtown Girls is kind of one of them. It's gotten really weird, and I think there are other ones too that I'd have to go back and listen to the record and to see how different they are. But I know some of them have kind of naturally morphed into their own thing or a different thing, and some we've kind of deliberately gone back and been like, hey, what if we did this, in the segue from the verse to the chorus or whatever.
Cool.
It just kind of happens.
Yeah,
and it keeps you engaged playing fucking night to night, and you've been playing, it's like...
You've been playing the song for like 5 years, 10
yeah,
years.
like Hood Rat, I probably, I remember like screwing that up in Atlanta, and I'm like, I've only played this 5,000 times, like I forgot the second verse.
Yeah.
Oops.
So plan coming up.
We're doing these weekends. We usually do like 2 shows at a mid to decent sized theater venue, like a couple thousand, and then we'll do like a smaller show, like an underplay or whatever you call it, at a smaller kind of.
That's a nice way to kind of
keep
it fresh and.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but
and
I love the idea. Just of going someplace for 4 days and playing 4 shows. That's really great because it's almost like a festival.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, and the kids love it too because everybody
Yeah, it becomes a somewhat of a destination for people. We try to pick cities that people are going to want to go and hang out. That you don't need to rent a car, or it's easy. There are hotels and stuff close to the venue where people aren't going to need to be driving all over hell. And there's other things to do during the day. And we announce everything at the beginning of the year so people can say, hey, let's go to this one and this one and this one. And then we'll do like a sound check one day where people can come and ask questions. And,
great.
And you end up, we were in Portland about a year and a half ago, and, people that are coming to the shows, I've become really good friends with and close, and there's a handful of people that I'll hang out with. And there was one point, I think it might have, we were there for a couple of days, and it was like a Saturday afternoon, and I was thinking, isn't it all great that we all have work to do in Portland this weekend so we can all hang out and see each other. Right. And it totally didn't occur to me that they were there to see the show. I was like, it's great that we're all here, isn't it? And they were kind of like,
what a coincidence.
What's fucking wrong with you? like what's it? Having a moment, I guess. But I was like, oh yeah, no, right. I guess that's why you're here.
Look, great travels.
Yeah. Thank you.
And tremendous having you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great.
Yeah,
and
pleasure.
Okay, mazel tov.
Awesome,
thanks.
guys.
Thanks, buddy. Nice work.
Thank you. All right.
Cash advances and Jenny's back on campus. Can't believe that it's September. Jenny, what's the story? All the chicks in her sorority asked her how she spent the summer. Said I answered at some law firm, said I got...
For links, playlists, and extras for this and all our episodes, go to gearclubpodcast.com and be sure to sign up for our mailing list for the latest news and interviews. Follow us on social media at Gear Club Podcast and head over to our YouTube channel at Gear Club Podcast for video versions of all our episodes and more.
Thanks for listening. Gear Club is produced by James Frazee and the inexplicably enigmatic Jacques Friest. Our video wizard is Emily Sassmore. Matt Ely is our production and marketing czar. Luna Navarro is our social media maven. Gear Club is hosted by Stewart Lerman and John Aniello, and sometimes James. Big thanks to this episode's guests, our musical director Mel F. Lewis, our legal counsel, the firm of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe, our house band, the Silver Merkins, and our sponsor, Eventide.
What are you guys doing? A podcast?
Oh, come on.